Hello guys, this is Real Recaps. In this video, I will talk about a 2024 American psychological horror film, Heretic. Before we start, I hope you will like and subscribe to the channel. The film begins with two Mormon missionaries, Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton, sitting together and engaging in a conversation about adult content. Paxton shares that she recently watched a video and felt a deep sense of pity for the actress featured in it. She also believes that such videos are not real and that everything in them is fabricated. This leads Paxton to reaffirm her belief in God, viewing everything as part of divine confirmation. She then turns to Barnes and asks how God has revealed to her that the church is true. Barnes responds honestly, admitting that she hasn't really taken the time to reflect on the matter. Once their discussion concludes, the two missionaries head out into town, determined to share their faith and encourage conversions. However, their efforts are met with widespread disinterest as no one seems willing to listen to them. Feeling discouraged, they decide to head back. While walking along the street, they spot a group of teenage girls. Seeing an opportunity to engage, they approach the girls. Unfortunately, the interaction takes a nasty turn when the teenagers play a cruel prank on Paxton, pulling down her skirt to check if she is wearing the so-called magic underwear associated with their religion. Humiliated and deeply upset, Paxton confides in Barnes about how much it hurts when people mock their faith. Barnes, however, seems unfazed and brushes off the incident. As the weather worsens, heavy rain begins to fall, and the missionaries seek shelter. They eventually arrive at the home of an Englishman named Mr. Reed, who greets them warmly and strikes up a conversation about God and Christianity. Initially, the missionaries hesitate to enter his home, citing their rule that a woman must be present for them to go inside. Reed reassures them by stating that his wife is in the house and that she is currently baking a blueberry pie. This convinces them to accept his invitation, and they step inside, handing over their coats as they settle in. Once inside, Reed briefly leaves and later returns with refreshments, including the promised blueberry pie. However, the missionaries remind him that his wife needs to join them in the room. Reed assures them that he will call her shortly. He then initiates a discussion, revealing that he has extensively studied Mormonism and owns a copy of the Book of Mormon by Joseph Smith. Paxton engages enthusiastically in the conversation and seems happy to be there, but Barnes grows visibly uncomfortable as the discussion progresses. Reed begins to touch on personal and sensitive topics, including the death of Barnes's father, who passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease. He also makes a bizarre comment about how they avoid discussing Taco Bell. As the conversation grows increasingly tense, the lights suddenly go out. Reed dismisses the incident as a minor quirk of his house and leaves the room to investigate. At this point, Barnes becomes extremely uneasy and insists that they should leave immediately. She notices something strange. The scent of blueberry pie, which Reed claimed his wife was baking, seems to be emanating from the candle on the table rather than the kitchen. When Reed returns, he invites the missionaries into the dining room, but they feel increasingly uncomfortable and begin looking for an excuse to leave. They pretend to receive a phone call, claiming they need to attend a meeting. However, they soon realize that all the exits are locked, and there is no cell signal to make an actual call. Panic begins to set in as they discover that their coats and the keys to their bicycles are missing. They attempt to find another way out of the house, but every door and window is locked. As they explore further, they come across a strange statue that seems to stare at them with an unsettling gaze. Eventually, they find Mr. Reed in his study, holding a box that contains an extensive personal library. The missionaries retrieve their coats, but they are dismayed to discover that their bike key ends up being found in Paxton's coat instead of Barnes'. When they try to excuse themselves politely, Reed blocks their way and presents them with a peculiar choice. He directs their attention to two doors, one labeled Belief and the other Disbelief. Reed explains that the doors symbolize their true convictions and challenges them to choose based on their actual faith in God. Adding to their unease, he reveals that he knows they faked the phone call, pointing out that there is no cell signal in his house. He also admits that he does not own a telephone. Reluctantly, the missionaries choose one of the doors and step through, only to find themselves in a dimly lit basement. Reed soon follows and appears to be holding something ominous. The tension reaches a peak, but it quickly dissipates when they realize he is simply holding an original version of the Monopoly board game. Reed begins an extensive lecture, explaining the history of Monopoly and how it evolved from an older game called the Landlord's Game. Reed continues to ramble, shifting the conversation to the song "The Air That I Breathe" by the Hollies. He explains that elements of this song were borrowed by Radiohead for their hit "Creep." Through these examples, Reed tries to draw a broader parallel, claiming that all religions are flawed derivatives of the one true faith. Reed turned off the lights and Paxton finds something nearby before Reed put on his projector to continue his education on religion. Meanwhile, Elder Kennedy, a member of the Mormon Church, realizing that Sisters Barnes and Paxton never signed back in after their outing. Concerned, he begins retracing their steps, visiting the houses they were likely to have visited in search of their whereabouts. Meanwhile, at Mr. Reed's house, he offers the missionaries yet another opportunity to choose between the doors labeled "belief" and "disbelief", claiming the choice reflects their faith in God. Barnes challenges Reed's arguments, criticizing his use of metaphors and statistics to diminish the significance of certain religions, particularly Judaism. Ultimately, Barnes and Paxton decide to enter the "belief" door. The door leads them to an underground dungeon, where they are met by a decrepit woman, referred to as the Prophet, holding a disheveled blueberry pie. Reed speaks to them through a speaker, announcing that they are about to witness a miracle. He reveals that the pie has been poisoned, and as the woman consumes it, she collapses and dies. Reed commands Barnes to check if the woman is truly dead, and she confirms it. Reed then declares they are about to see the woman resurrected. Meanwhile, Elder Kennedy arrives at Reed's house searching for the sisters. The sisters, hearing him outside, desperately try to get his attention. They attempt to light a match to signal him, but it fails, and Kennedy leaves without noticing anything amiss. Shortly after, the so-called prophet appears to resurrect, murmuring cryptic descriptions of the afterlife, including white clouds and the claim that it is not real. Reed triumphantly returns to boast about the supposed miracle, proposing to sacrifice one of the sisters to demonstrate resurrection. Barnes, however, argues against the authenticity of the miracle. She explains that the prophet's visions are likely a product of oxygen deprivation in the brain, a phenomenon she personally experienced during a near-death experience caused by an E. coli infection. She believes Reed has been keeping the woman on the brink of death to manipulate her hallucinations and bolster his belief in the one true religion. Paxton uses this moment to launch an attack on Reed, but her attempt is thwarted when Reed slashes Barnes' throat in front of her. Reed confidently claims Barnes will return to life, but after several minutes, he realizes she is not coming back. In his search for an explanation, Reed cuts into Barnes' arm and discovers a small metal pin. He irrationally concludes that Barnes was never real, believing her to be a simulation or program, and questions the authenticity of Paxton's reality as well. Reed elaborates on his belief that humanity exists in an advanced simulation indistinguishable from real life. Paxton, however, counters his claims. She identifies the metal object as a contraceptive device and accuses Reed of orchestrating the prophet's supposed resurrection by substituting the dead woman with another who had been coached to deliver a scripted description of the afterlife. The second woman inadvertently revealed the truth by admitting, "It is not real." Paxton descends through the trapdoor to the location where the dead woman would be, allowed by Reed so that she can witness what he believes is the one true religion. Once there, Paxton discovers numerous other women trapped in cages and realizes that, in Reed's mind, the one true religion is control. This conclusion solidifies as she recalls how Reed manipulated the women into attempting suicide, making them believe it was their own choice. Paxton begins to narrate how Reed meticulously orchestrated every detail to cover his tracks and erase evidence of the two sisters from the moment they arrived at his house. Everything had been calculated to lead to this exact moment, where he intended to make her accept his ideology of control as the ultimate truth. When Reed tries to provoke Paxton, she finally understands his beliefs entirely. In response, she uses a hidden letter opener, given to her by Barnes for protection, to stab Reed in the throat. Paxton attempts to escape but doesn't get far before Reed retaliates, stabbing her in the stomach with the same weapon. As they both lie bleeding, Reed mockingly tells Paxton to pray. Paxton dismisses prayer as an act of kindness rather than a means to achieve anything tangible. Despite this, she begins to pray aloud. Reed, determined to finish her off, crawls toward her. Just as he is about to strike, he is struck in the head by Sister Barnes, who miraculously survived long enough to defend Paxton. The blow, delivered with a plank of wood studded with nails, kills Reed. Barnes collapses into Paxton's arms, and in a poignant moment, the two share an emotional goodbye before Barnes succumbs to her injuries. Paxton, though gravely wounded, manages to find a window and escape. By now, it is morning, and the storm has cleared. As she makes her way to safety, a butterfly lands on her hand, reminding her of her earlier wish to return as one in the afterlife. When she looks away for a moment, the butterfly vanishes. The end. Thanks for watching.